The syngas that's being generated through the process is basically in this chamber around the pyrolysis chamber, and this maintains the temperature. So because we recycle and utilize the syngas to maintain the temperature, the emissions that are emitted outside of the system are very limited.
Welcome to Carbon Conversations, a podcast by Biochar Life, where we explore the cutting edge of environmental solutions, from biochar to smart agriculture to the climate tech revolution. We sit down with experts and business leaders at the forefront of change. This is your host, Matt Rickard. Hey, Pawel, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Hi, Matt. I'm great. Thank you. How are you doing? Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, my pleasure. We know each other, obviously, dealing with each other in business, in biochar, in everything that we're going to talk about. And but I won't do you a disservice by introducing you. Perhaps you can just give us the short bio yourself, what you do, and we can talk about WasteX and everything today.
All right, perfect. Thank you for that. So my name is Pawel. I'm the founder and CEO of WasteX. We started WasteX 2.5 years ago. Before that, I was initially a management consultant, then e-commerce businessman, then fintech entrepreneur. And after taking some break from my first business, I decided to go into climate tech, and that's how we started with WasteX.
Cool. What was the look? Obviously, successful entrepreneur. Been in the startup space, built companies, and that kind of personal pivot, if you want to call it that, to climate tech. What were the interests, the motivations? How did that all come about? And that was what, in the last kind of 5 years or so, or has it been longer?
Yes, not like probably even shorter than 5 years. I guess it came from multiple sources of motivation. So one thing is that after my first business, I realized I really enjoyed building organizations, building businesses, and I can see myself as this is the kind of space where I can make the biggest personal impact. And it also gives me a lot of joy, energy, and I just love doing this. At the same time, after my first business, I realized that, or maybe it was like a just stage in life, or maybe exit from the business, that money is not such a big driver for me anymore. And I want to really make an impact for others, for the planet, whatever are the biggest challenges out there. And I think after a couple of years ago, I realized that climate crisis is the biggest challenge that I can affect, because obviously we have other challenges in the world, like risk of nuclear war and maybe AI, etc. But I think that the kind of one of the, if not the biggest challenge and crisis facing humanity is the climate one. So going into the climate tech was a sort of a product of me believing that I can create the biggest personal impact building a business, as well as looking at an opportunity where I can do it while creating this climate impact.
Cool. Yeah, and that's what we're going to talk about. Obviously, the WasteX unit. I think for the audience point of view, I suppose just to explain for anyone watching. So, we've obviously, people who know Biochar Life, we've been in this space for a number of years, working with smallholder farmers, teaching them to create biochar and generating removal processes and credits from that. And we came across yourself, your technology, because we started to look at how can we introduce something more advanced than the kind of open Kentuckys that we've been using. And your units we've just implemented. We're in the process of kind of the first stages of that. Only a month in, we've got a couple of units, WasteX units here in Thailand. You're in Indonesia. Talk to us from, not to me, I think, but to the audience. Give us the description of what is a WasteX unit? What was it designed for? It's a biochar pyrolysis unit, but let's assume more ignorance within the audience, give us a bit of a kind of high level spec on what it is, and also why you looked to design that particular type of unit, because there are many, obviously, different types of units.
Definitely. And I think, as you mentioned, the audience might not be so accustomed to what we're doing, but I believe that what Biochar Life and WasteX is trying to accomplish and believes in is very much aligned, and not only in about biochar space, but creating the impact at the decentralized level with smallholders, as well as moving to higher tech, lower emissions way of production. So we are doing it in a very, I believe, very similar fashion. We have a slightly different angle than Biochar Life, but we're very impressed with what Biochar Life achieved. You guys are one of the biggest biochar carbon removal operators in the world, and again at this decentralized scale in developing world, which again, this is something what we strongly believe in. So what we desire to accomplish is that we wanted to basically at 2.5 years ago become what you're doing, but we have struggled scaling up the Kontiki model, both from the operational. Maybe there's also different countries work it differently. There are not so big operations on Kontiki in like places we started, like Philippines or Indonesia. So we struggled both with farmers, which we have seen they are very keen to apply biochar, but when it comes to biochar production, it faces lots of challenges, which I bet you have faced as well, but I guess you figured out how to do it at scale anyway. So we wanted to go something larger, more automated, lower emissions. But what we realized is that there is no such technology in the market that has an attractive price performance profile. So you can get something maybe that is cheap, but it's not going to be durable, it's not going to perform well, or you can get something great, but like from the US or Europe, but it's going to cost you couple times of what we're currently manufacturing in Indonesia or India. So at that point, we realized we got to develop it ourselves. So we started investing in R&D, and after 1.5 years of doing R&D, we had our first commercial unit ready. So what we provide to organizations and clients like yourself, but also we sell it to agriculture producers, fertilizer manufacturers, and so on, is a small scale automated low emission carbonizer that can produce up to 100 tons of biochar a year. It's obviously we put quite a bit of automation, stainless steel, etc., etc. So there is certain price point you're gonna pay, but it's still affordable compared to even China equipment that you want to buy. And in this way, we believe that we can put it in a decentralized manner, not like a one big factory with lots of logistics and engineering challenges, capex challenges, etc., etc. But you can put it in a decentralized manner, but just adding more automation, lower emissions, slightly higher capacity. So this is what we do as an equipment. But we also started, because our initial intention was also going to our own project. We're also building and scaling up our own project, utilizing our equipment in Indonesia.
Cool, makes sense. And definitely, obviously, we've partnered with you guys because we see it kind of, WasteX fulfilling that gap between the bigger industrial units and the smaller kind of mobile non-industrial units. It's you kind of seem to fit in the middle there, and that's why we've been kind of looking to roll them out. So interesting to me. I mean, this is not an area I'm in, but 1.5 years R&D. So that there was a fair journey in terms of going from starting a business, raising some capital, to building something. What was that like? What were some of the challenges and I suppose the milestones in that? Did you have to create a lot of different versions, test, break, retry? What was the journey of that kind of R&D process?
Yes. Initially, our engineers expected it's going to be faster, easier, cheaper. I'm not an engineer myself, but we have a bunch of engineers we're working with, as well as worked in the past. So yes, that was if I were to start it again, knowing how much time and money it would take, that's probably like, I would have thought like 10 times. But we managed to accomplish that. So yes, I mean, we had to try to stay at a very lean overhead, because investors have expectations, and then obviously every organization has limited capital while investing in R&D. So yes, there were like many versions. We started with mild steel, then we moved to stainless steel. We looked at so many different design, lots of features developed over time, and yeah, iterations, like basically new iterations coming up every quarter right now, incorporating different learnings, and with the intention to increase capacity, improve performance, increase durability, better recycling of byproducts, better safety, etc., etc. So yes, lots of challenges, milestones on the R&D itself. Yeah, I think right now we have an equipment that we can be really proud of from the commercial perspective. But yes, as I'm saying, like every quarter there was like a new iteration, learnings, and also since we started last year running our own projects in Indonesia, we had multiple learnings on, because we were using the equipment much more extensively. We had like many learnings, how the equipment performs with the extensive use. So that also helped us. That's why when people ask us, are we like manufacturing and providing equipment or running on projects, I see there's a very complementary, because running our own projects, we get so many learnings how to improve the design of the equipment.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think it's very hard just to be an equipment manufacturer, certainly in the first few years, because really all of the learning you're going to get is using the equipment in the field, working with communities and everything. And as you went through that R&D process, obviously you got to a point, I don't know whether it's version 1 or what version, but you've then been through rigorous testing in terms of things like looking at the risk of methane, right? Because obviously that within the space we're in there's been plenty of rhetoric around it. There's been plenty of pushback. And, one of the reasons we kind of, went into to invest in WasteX was because of this mitigation of the methane emissions. Just talk to us. We don't have to get scientific on it, but I think important to just highlight some of the process there and what it meant.
Definitely. So on the maybe I'll spend like 2-3 minutes discussing how we utilize the gases byproducts and syngas and minimize the emissions, while also minimizing the fuel use, and which also increases biochar conversion rate. So the way the system works is that when you start the system, you need to burn part of biomass for the fuel to reach get the right temperature in the burner. And then to maintain the pyrolysis process, typically in our equipment is between 550 and 650 degrees. Initially, it's maintained, the burner operations is started and maintained by biomass. But over time, because syngas is being generated, we recycle the syngas to maintain the temperature of the pyrolysis process. And our system is automated in a way that there might be some syngas disruptions in the syngas generation, and then more fuel is pushed to the burner to keep the temperature of the process. But as long as the temperature of the system is maintained at 550 to 650 degrees, the syngas that's being generated to the process is basically in this chamber around the pyrolysis chamber, and this maintains the temperature. So because we recycle and utilize the syngas to maintain the temperature, the emissions that are emitted outside of the system are very limited. Based on the emissions lab test that we have done for the 3 feedstock types that we're supposed to test for the purpose of the equipment certification with the CSI. We got for all of them below zero point 0.1 gram of methane per 1 kilogram of biochar. And compared to Kontiki in the global artisan ceasing standard is assumed at 30 grams per kilogram, 30 grams of methane per kilogram of biochar. So our equipment generates 300 times less, which, if you think about it, it shouldn't be that surprising if you look at probably the advanced technologies like Pyrec, etc. It's going to be comparable, because if you think about Kontiki, I mean, this is open pit burning, right? So all the gases go out. So as long as you have some kind of a closed system and you can recirculate the gases for either some more advanced system, capture the gas, they have heat exchangers, some of them convert it to electricity, but in any way you capture, recycle, or reuse the gas, then obviously there's going to be huge multiple times lower than open pit burning.
Sure. And yeah, understood. I mean, and good news, I think, for the, for the standard itself. It's something that there are certain safeguards that you can put in place for Kontikis, which we do in terms of dry biomass. But I think really from a buyer's point of view, often it's more just the confidence in being able to certify that process, essentially to demonstrate through testing that methane, that syngas is gone back into the barrel or stayed in the barrel and burnt off at a higher temperature, in my very non-technical way of describing it in short. But essentially that's what's happening, right?
Yes.
Cool. What has been the market uptake so far? How are you seeing I see a lot of discussion of what you guys are doing. Obviously we get inquiries. I see a fair bit on social media. Just how are you seeing the uptake of WasteX of the business? How is the market responding so far? What are the indicators?
Sure, definitely. So on our own performance, so far we sold around 25 units, mostly in Indonesia, but also we shipped it to China, India, Philippines, Dubai, Uganda, and we have upcoming clients in Kenya, US, I know obviously Thailand with you guys that was implemented a month ago. I guess so. And I probably you have faced this kind of a decision making yourself, which both it's on our side, many people we're talking to, and as I'm saying, likely on your side as well. What are you looking for? Where do you want to? What kind of biochar production business model you believe in, right? And I think there are pros and cons, and I'm not against any of them in particular. But some people are still some people. And many people like yourself, including, do it successfully, where you do it using any type of Kontiki or TLAT equipment and work it with thousands of farmers. So this is a very, this is already operating way of doing this. But as you mentioned as well, direct from carbon credit buyers as well as from environmental consideration, you might be also considering or implementing higher tech solutions, and I guess from Biochar Life perspective, you guys going both directions. On the other hand, obviously you have industrial facilities, right? And some people in industrials, it could be like hundreds or thousands of tons of biochar per year per facility, and also, as I'm saying, depending on what you believe in, what kind of maybe experience you have, what kind of risk appetite you have as well, because we have heard of such developers who invested millions, built a facility, took them 2 years, and then they were rejected for carbon credit certification of one of the standards. So you also it's maybe higher return eventually, definitely probably in terms of dollars, but also higher risk, right? But I mean, there are obviously like players doing it also successfully at a larger scale. So they're like those like different organizations believe and operate at different stages of this market. And why I wanted to share this context to address your question, because we have seen it exactly from the our clients and our prospective clients, right? So some of them will ask us for a bigger capacity equipment. Some of them ask us for cheaper equipment, and so on, right? And so what we have developed, and we rather still focus on one model with a we want to work, or we actually started, but it will take another at least a year for R&D to develop 3 times the capacity of the equipment. But we have what we believe is an attractive offer at this segment of the market with this capacity at this price point, and we exactly find clients who are looking for that, who believe also in this decentralized model. Or they might be like, we have some clients who want to build something much bigger 2-3 years from now, but they already want to start producing biochar, get the certification, start testing in their agriculture operations, etc. We have some clients that are in, for example, fertilizer or cement manufacturing, and then they want to test new formulations of their products. So it's also our equipment just allows them to do it at this limited scale that they just need, right? So what we have is this specific part of the market, but I think, as I mentioned, depending maybe on the country, on the situation, on what the organization is geared for, I believe that there is the agriculture and biomass residues globally is so humongous that all sorts of ways to operate it. There will be space for it, and so it's a question what you're looking for. We want to be in this like a still decentralized by more automated segment of the market.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, that's encouraging to hear the kind of number of units you've already kind of sold and put out there. I think the interesting thing about your unit and the price point and the size of it is that, the removals market, if that's the financial driver for the organization, there's still a lot of settling to do. We've still got a lot to learn. The next 2-3 years will really tell what are the kind of leading technologies. But the interesting thing about your units, there could be other drivers. I mean, people just needing the biochar itself within an agricultural area, even to the point where I spoke to someone here who has an individual who has a fair bit of land that could look at a unit like that, where they know nothing about the credits market. They're simply looking at an efficient way to make biochar and put it back into their own land. So I think it's some interesting, nuances in how it can be distributed. So, as we kind of draw to the end, I suppose just getting some vision stuff. I mean, how do you see the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years in terms of what you're doing and the wider market in general? When I talk about the market there, I'm really talking about the removals market. Where do you see it going, and where do you see kind of WasteX going over that period?
Mm-hmm. So from our perspective, our plan for this year, we barely started selling the units mid last year. So our plan for this year is to sell 100 plus units. In the long-term perspective, 5 to 10 years, we want to be selling thousands of units a year, and supporting the growth of such a decentralized biochar carbon removal, as well as supporting the not only on the climate mitigation, but also on the climate adaptation, where we help the farmers with relying less on the fertilizer, increasing the yield, etc., which obviously in the face of the climate crisis and then decreasing the yields, increasing the increased cost of the fertilizer will be critical, especially for smallholders in the developing countries. So that's what we want to accomplish. We are in the biochar space just as you are, because I guess I mean, that's from our perspective, but I guess you believe in a similar way that this is a great carbon removal method as well as great way to help the agriculture. So we strongly believe in this. There are obviously different. If since you asked about the carbon credit markets, there are also different ways of carbon removal, like technology, which we all know it's quite expensive right now. On the other hand, you have natural carbon removals like reforestry, which obviously is great for the ecosystems, for biodiversity, but we also like the occurrence of fires these days. It's also a quite a risky way to do it. So I think I strongly believe in biochar, and I believe that it's going to grow big time in the next years and a decade. And hopefully, like working with you and working with other players in the market, we will figure out ways how to grow it fast, but also sustainably, right? We don't want to end up in a situation that whether it's for methane, whether it's for fraud or any other issues, there could be like challenges like the forestry project faced, right? So from our perspective is we need to try to do it as fast as possible because we do have a climate crisis, but also responsibly and sustainably, managing all the risks, not trying to do anything too fast or too reckless. And I think as long as we can manage such risk, I strongly believe in this carbon removal space, and yes, we hope we could help it grow globally.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we're very aligned on that. Certainly, the lessons that have been learned from forestry and the fallout and the mistakes. I think everyone is very rightfully aware of that. And yeah, it's about being sensible, impactful, but sensible. But also, I think the social impact element, really, the people element, being the community, the farmers, and being able to just yes, we're removing carbon, we're supporting environmental progress, but also looking at the social benefits of that and the number of farmers that you can work with, which I know, is something that you've kind of championed in your design. So,
no, it's amazing. And perhaps you have similar experiences, but in our applications with farmers, we typically get like 30-40% increase in yield in the first
yeah,
application. And for some crops like corn, we get like 90%. So this is pretty amazing. So if you think about from their perspective and such smallholders, their annual income is $1,000, $2,000 a year, right? If you can even increase this income by 50%, it's just unbelievable impact you can have on the agriculture communities here in Southeast Asia.
yeah, definitely. I think just to add to that, I mean, biochar is not new. It's been around for plenty of time, although many people have never heard of it. But in the last 12 months, we're seeing so much awareness in Thailand for biochar as a product, how it can be used, and of course the whole displacement of chemical fertilizers. And so I hope we see more and more of that. There hasn't really been such a market on that side today. It's been small, but it seems to be growing, where the agricultural space can start to adopt it as a product as well, and it can be distributed far and wide. So yeah, exciting times ahead. Maybe just a final question, doesn't need to be relevant to WasteX, but just more generally, advice you give to other entrepreneurs. You're obviously successful as an entrepreneur. You've pivoted away from, it was software, right? You were in before, I think.
It was fintech.
Fintech.
So just making money.
So fintech to building units in R&D for a year and a half. That's a big change, but, advice to other younger entrepreneur. I don't mean I'm talking about myself when I say younger, probably, but entrepreneurs out there, embarking on their first startup in this space or not in this space. Yeah, what advice would you give, I suppose?
A couple of things on my mind. So climate tech, in the first place, as it's really difficult, right? Because it's something that it's still like a slow adoption. People talk about it, but as you're saying, we know how good biochar is for agriculture, but the agricultural producers I think agriculture is still quite good when it comes to biochar adoption compared to, for example, construction, right, or steel, right? So I think it's still good, but overall climate tech or like sustainability solutions adoption, people talk a lot about it, but the adoption of any sort of solutions is tough.
Mm.
So that's maybe one thing. The other is that maybe it's because I really believe in what I'm doing. I work basically constantly, right? And I think you gotta do it. You gotta put up long hours every day. You gotta persevere, right? So I think it's building a business whether you work with clients or investors is probably worse than dating, right? I mean, like out of 50 dates, you will be someone who will say yes once, right? So you gotta get used to like rejection over rejection over rejections and keep persevering, right?
You're talking about the fundraising element there, are you? When you talk like pitching
Fundraising
and
and also clients as well, right?
right,
So it's
okay,
like
yeah,
because like plenty of them, it's not even that like you don't have something good, but as I mentioned, in our space it's just like someone will look for something bigger, someone will look for something cheaper, right? So the right client for you will be it will take time, right? And lots of rejection. So you got to get used to that. What else? Get ready for a very long journey, right? It's related to these rejections, right? So it's like you're gonna put something in Excel. It's gonna take three times as much time, and you're gonna get a third of what you wanted to accomplish, right? So get ready for a long, long journey. Manage your budget super. In a very lean and responsible way. So it's also lots of like if some entrepreneurs get funding, they try to like go fast, which maybe sometimes you will be successful, but most of the time you might be run out of money. And then so one thing is if you work with investors, they obviously want to do it fast and big, but you also need to be it's finding like the right compromise so you can accomplish that, but you don't risk of running out of business because that's what you're responsible for survival, right? If you look at the startups closure bankruptcy rate, it's very high. So I mean, first optimize for survival, and then do your best to grow fast. Anything else on my mind? Yeah, I mean, it's just already like, beside the things that, be ethical, never do any fraud or anything, right? Which is like recently in the startup space, it's happening quite frequently. But I think it's just like, be a good human being, right?
yeah, yeah. So to laser that down, if I let me, so work hard, expect to work hard, expect to be rejected, certainly frequently as you get going. It's going to be a long journey, so stay in there and do it the right way. That's my lasering down on what you just said. Hopefully that's about right.
And manage the risks. Plan for the worst. Assume that it's going to take way longer than you wanted to, so that you don't end up that you need to close it down, right?
Cool. Yeah. Good advice. Makes sense. Look, it's been good to have you. Before we knock off, do you want to leave your details? Where should people go to find out more about WasteX? Get in touch with yourself if they want to. I will also, for anyone watching or listening, I'll put these in the speaker notes.
Sure. So we have the WasteX.io website. I'm not very frequent on social media, but I'm messaging with people on LinkedIn. So I'm open on LinkedIn. I think my LinkedIn is also mentioned on our website. My name is Pawel Kuznicki, Kuznicki. So yeah, there are two places I'm there.
Cool. Well, I'll put all those in the notes. So yeah, look, appreciate you taking some time out of your day. It's yeah, like I say, we know each other. We're kind of working together as partners. So it's good to get on here though and learn a bit more and also share it with other people. So appreciated.
And thank you so much, Matt. Always pleasure to catch up with you.
Cheers, Pawel.
Thank you.